previous chapter, Slayer had received devastating news about his brother's disappearance. Despite not being blood-related, the bond between them was strong, and this revelation hit Slayer hard. So he turned to Uyu for an explanation, to which Uyu told him that it all happened after Hanny Xiao's 10th victory in the Stormcloud tournament. And just as usual, Hanny Xiao then participated in the Stormcloud catastrophe. But this time was different, as he didn't return, and so Uyu initiated a search. But despite using all available resources, it took her a considerable amount of time to discover that Hanny Xiao's last known location was the internal purgatory, and the problem was that she couldn't access this mysterious realm due to an unknown force blocking her. With this news, Slayer had no option but to summon Double C for assistance, but to his dismay, even Double C started to malfunction as she tried to search for more information about the place. Therefore, Slayer decided to delve into the database himself. Using his secret codes, he bypassed the database, and then he attempted to retrieve information about the internal purgatory. However, this action triggered errors in the system, and even when he tried to open the source code to counter the issue, things only worsened, as an unknown force began overriding the codes, ultimately forcing him out of the system. So, it looks like he doesn't have a choice but to go to the infernal purgatory himself. But the challenge now was that he had no idea how to reach the player's realm on his own. Fortunately, Double C knew the way, and so he decided to follow her guidance immediately. Meanwhile, Slayer's brother, Ah-Fei, found himself deceived by what he thought was his harem of admirers, as he discovered that these individuals, whom he believed were women, were, in fact, guys in real life, and they tricked him because they wanted to steal his items that he got from the boss. But Ah-Fei was not willing to let these imposters have their way, since the items were a gift from his brother, so he was determined to defend them. So, he gave everything he got to retaliate, but the odds were stacked heavily against him from the start. Taking on an entire guild single-handedly was an impossible feat, and he soon found himself on the brink of defeat. His enemies were even prepared to wait for him to respawn after death so they could kill him repeatedly, causing all his inventory items to drop upon each death. However, their plans were about to be disrupted, as Slayer arrived on the scene, and he was more than pissed to witness that his brother is being bullied by these trash. So Slayer declared that no one would leave this place unharmed. Now on to the next part. Seeing Slayer's new face, Ah-Fei immediately recognized him, which instantly lit his eyes up as he soon realized he was saved. Meanwhile, Slayer questioned how Ah-Fei managed to get into such a mess in such a short time. But since he was spoiled by his brother so much, Ah-Fei dramatically explains his circumstances to his brother, which he tells Slayer that it was their fault, not him, and not only they have robbed him of his equipment but also his pure and sincere feelings. But this outlandish explanation just left Slayer speechless. While this cute interaction unfolded, the three men were wary of Slayer's presence, as they had heard much about this big brother of Ah-Fei's, whom he often talked about. Still, it also means that he is very rich like Ah-Fei, so their eyes glowed with greed, as they were more excited than scared in Slayer's presence. With this realization, they called out to their guild members to come out, while Ah-Fei gets ready to defend their rear. But as time passes by, they noticed no one was responding to their calls, making the trio wonder what's taking them so long. So they turn around, only to find out that everyone has already been violated, and was sprawled on the ground lifeless, without them even noticing, which instantly left them puzzled, baffled, flabbergasted, and mostly confused. As they attempted to make sense of the situation, Ah-Fei took this opportunity to get his well-deserved revenge, instantly appearing behind them, to scare them shitless. However, they have the audacity to revert back to acting like girls, trying their best to get themselves out of the situation. They claimed it was all just a practical joke, but Ah-Fei isn't a fool.
Silence, wench! I do not wish to be horny anymore. I just want to be happy.
Now that they have defeated the catfishes and their northward guild, they decided to make their way back to the city. As they walked, Ah-Fei couldn't contain his curiosity any longer, as he wondered why his brother had come looking for him. So he asked Slayer if he made any progress on their older brother's matter, prompting Slayer to explain about the infernal purgatory, which brought a smile to Ah-Fei's face. He was filled with hope and enthusiasm. However, Slayer couldn't share his brother's excitement entirely, as worry clouded his eyes because he knew that this upcoming mission wasn't cause for celebration, since he can only speculate that the place they are going to raid is a high-level one, and based on their current strength, it is simply beyond their reach. Still, Ah-Fei remained cheerful, as he was confident that his brother had already figured out a plan. So, he enthusiastically assured Slayer that he would follow his second brother's lead without hesitation, which is why they are now heading to the nearby town to pawn off all the weapons and equipment they got, while Slayer endured Ah-Fei's chatterbox nature, worthy of being the little brother. A few moments later, they had arrived at the southern suburbs, Mikendi Town, where tons of players had gathered, and as they walked through the town, Slayer was relieved to see that he was finally back in the game that he was familiar with, and he even got that unspoken riz, as he kept receiving friend requests left and right. Still he rejected it, since he was a man of focus after all, while his little brother on the other hand, still haven't learned his lesson as he still try to bag a virtual girlfriend even though he knows that they might be a guy in real life. A few steps more, they had arrived at the equipment recycling stall where an old man who looks like so bored of his job greeted them, but as soon as he saw what Slayer wanted to recycle, his demeanor changed. Interest filled his eyes, as he sees so many elite and premium grade equipment all at once, which he then gave them a price of 95,000 gold coins for it, making Ah-Fei's eyes filled with excitement, because according to the current exchange rate of game currency, this is equivalent to tens of thousands of real cash. Unexpectedly, Slayer suddenly complimented the shopkeeper's hairstyle, calling it handsome, which really made him happy, and you could tell, it really brightens up his whole week. And just like that, a system notification popped up, congratulating him for successfully triggering the recycling trader's Easter egg, increasing their recycling price for their current transaction by 10%. This shocked Ah-Fei as he was not expecting such a thing exist, so he asks Slayer for clarification, to which he explains to him that this one was because of the programmer's little hobbies when designing Easter eggs, since he can't change his baldness, so he just decided to change the world that he helped create. And with this, they received over 100,000 gold, completing the achievement called Tons of Wealth, which Ah-Fei was proudly wore the title, garnering the attention of everyone who saw it, while Slayer on the other hand felt embarrassed seeing his little bro act like this. However, they still have so many pieces of equipment left, so Ah-Fei asks his brother if they aren't going to sell them, to which he clarifies that they are, and that they just haven't reached the right place to sell them yet. A few moments later, they have arrived at the front of a luxurious massive building, the auction hall, where tons of players have gathered outside, trying to get in. However, it seems like the players were growing impatient as the lines kept on getting longer, and they have already wasted too much time just lining up. But still, the guard weren't fazed by the increasing number of impatient players, as they were too sassy to be bothered, as they were known for their strict criteria for admission, and they weren't about to make exceptions for anyone. This became apparent when a player approached the guards with a polite request, explaining to them that he was just a few hundred gold coins short of meeting the admission requirement and pleaded with them to make an exception, emphasizing that there was an essential piece of equipment he needed in the upcoming auction. However, to his disappointment, the guards not only rejected his plea but also humiliated him outright, calling him a broke bitch before dismissing him. The other players weren't any more sympathetic. Already frustrated with the long line, they resented the player who had held them up, viewing him with disdain for what they saw as a waste of their time. Still, he tried his best to smile. Luckily for him, Slayer and Ah-Fei appeared, and told the guards that he is with them, which the guards were questioning their identity at first, but as soon as they saw Ah-Fei's title, they immediately went over to the side, opening the door for them, and welcomed them kindly, as they deemed them to be a VIP. Surprising everyone who witnessed it. With this, they entered the lobby of the auction hall, and it was adorned with extravagant chandeliers, marble floors, and a plush red carpet, exuding an elegance unlike any other place they had ever been. And since the short king had other things to do, he expressed his gratitude to his benefactors, and assured them that he would find a way to repay their kindness in the future, which made Slayer and Ah-Fei pleased to see the one they have helped as a grateful, well-mannered young man. And so they happily bid each other farewell. Then, a lady wearing a full-body net stocking, just like the ones the guards wear, appeared before them, and greeted Ah-Fei kindly, and introduced herself as their guide for their visit, and they can call her the Eight of Hearts of the auction hall. And in accordance with his tons of wealth title, they have automatically prepared a black gold card for him, which has 3 features. First, it allows the holder to enter without queuing. Second, when selling items in the auction house, the commission is reduced from 10% to 5%. Third, they can use this card to get a loan from the auction house, which the loan limit is determined by their credit limit. Still, Ah-Fei's horniness knew no bounds as he asked their guide if the VIP card also included the benefit of entering the space in her heart, which completely caught her off guard. But this game isn't like that, so his Riz was completely off the mark, while Slayer, on the other hand, couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed witnessing his little brother's descent into insanity. Nonetheless, he just took a deep sigh, as he knew he couldn't do anything. Unexpectedly, someone familiar walked by him, catching his attention. However, her walking speed appeared to be too fast for Slayer to keep up with, as she was now out of sight, and their guide had already shown them the way to the private room, so Slayer didn't look for her further. A few moments later, they are now seated comfortably. Eight of Hearts handed them their tea and began briefing Slayer and Ah-Fei on what to expect in the upcoming auction, telling them that they will begin auctioning their equipment immediately, as epic equipments are in high demand at the moment, so they can expect that all of the auctions will be closed within an hour. And as for the epic-grade lightsaber of theirs, the Stardust, it is regarded as one of the top-ranked weapons of all time. So, she will submit it to the ultimate auction, and they will definitely get a good price for it. And if they have time, she suggested that they can also take part in the auction as well, since they may come across something that interests them. Still, Ah-Fei haven't got an answer out of her yet, so he immediately asks their guide if she would be also coming with them, since there is so much that he doesn't know about her that he would definitely like to know. However, this actions of Ah-Fei was too much even for Slayer, as their reputation would plummet if things keep going like this, and therefore, Slayer gave him a piece of his mind, smacking Ah-Fei's head to control that uncontrollable horniness of his. And now that was settled, he gave their guide the list of items they require, in order to collect them in an hour, which she understood. A few moments later, the auction has started, and so the auctioneer for this event introduced himself as Jack of Diamonds, and he was more than happy to start the auction, since the item that they have for them today are all priceless, and only they can decide their worth. He also hopes that every guest present will be able to walk away from today's auction with the items their hearts desires. Hearing his opening remarks, the players give him a round of applause, which the auctioneer was thankful for, but that was enough of formalities for today, as he launched into the main event, commencing with the first treasure up for auction, the Roaring Heart of Flame. This gem was designed for embedding in weapons, imbuing them with powerful fire attributes. It was particularly effective against wood-type monsters. The opening bid for this remarkable gem was set at 20,000 gold, in which participant number 78 quickly raised it to 25,000. Then, another bidder pushed it to 28,000. However, the real showdown occurred when participant number 36 boldly surged ahead, raising the bid to an impressive 35,000 gold. He even has a confident grin across his face, while asserting that no one should dare to snatch this coveted item from him, as he had firmly set his sights on it. However, behind his grin, lurked a sly personality, as he knew that 35,000 gold was all he had, so he couldn't afford to prolong the bidding, and raising a substantial amount was his strategy to scare away other bidders. And this is only the first auction item, so he was more than confident that there shouldn't be anyone who was willing to pay any higher than him. And just as he presumed, the auctioneer started counting to seal the deal, but to their surprise, participant number 9 raised the bid to 50,000 in the last second, completely shocking everyone, because even if the item was valuable, it isn't worth that kind of amount. Even the previous transactions for such an item only went for around 28,000, so they are more curious to know the identity of this rich man. But this guy doesn't care about them, as he was busy simping for his virtual girlfriend, and just like that, the item was sold to number 9. With this turn of events, guest number 36 couldn't help but feel disappointed as he had set his heart on acquiring that particular item. However, he knew there was little he could do, as he had been bidding against the infamous Han Xiao, a crypto magnate, so he'd just have to look for another Roaring Heart of Flame next auction. Meanwhile, Ah-Fei was growing increasingly irritated as he observed Han Xiao, unaware that he was actually looking at his own reflection. Nevertheless, the auction was just beginning, so they proceeded to unveil the second item, a special costume known as the Loving Maid, which can transform the wearer into a genuine maid. The starting bid was set at 30,000 gold. Surprisingly, several participants eagerly joined the competition, driving the final bid up to 48,000 gold, with guest number 66 emerging as the victor. Unfortunately for them, the winner was so eager to put it on immediately, so number 66 decided to wear it in front of everyone, shocking everyone who witnessed number 66 undress and equip the maid outfit in front of their very eyes. Even Slayer and Afe was left speechless, as they witness how this game has a really high degree of freedom. With that matter settled, they resumed the auction by presenting the third item, the Lone Wolf's boots. These boots gave the wearer a 2% chance of entering Excel mode when moving. Although the starting price was set at 40,000 gold, Han Xiao had different plans, as he outright doubled the price, raising it to 80,000, surprising everyone once again. Because of this, they have collectively decided that if Han Xiao wants it, they would just let him. However, they were unprepared for Han Xiao's extravagant spending spree as he continued to dominate and win every subsequent auction item, while he was doing the chick he's with, indirectly calling everyone a lonely broke bitch, which discouraged the remaining guests. And so they started to leave the auction, as they couldn't even bid on anything, and it goes to show that money really lets one do anything they want. On the other hand, Afe was more irritated with Han Xiao than ever, as he couldn't help but wonder why he felt this way, but it was tempting him to throw a punch at Han Xiao, to which Slayer told him not to, since they will also need Han Xiao's help for their item that's coming right up. And just as Slayer had predicted, the auction was now approaching its climax, and the final treasure to be unveiled was the most valuable of them all, the lightsaber Stardust. This extraordinary item not only granted a significant boost in stats but also possessed 3 rare traits. Its most remarkable feature was its ability to unleash extremely rare light attribute attacks, and in the main storyline quests, particularly those from levels 25 to 30, light-based attacks were essential, so it is not an exaggeration to call it the cream of the crop of all currently available weapons. The starting price for this item was set at 200,000 gold. Surprisingly, Han Xiao didn't follow his previous pattern of doubling the price. Instead, he modestly raised it to 250,000, as he was confident that none of these idiots would dare to challenge him now, since he planned this all along, a game where he placed a sacrifice a small expense to make big gains. To his astonishment, another participant boldly raised the bid to 300,000, leaving Han Xiao with no choice but to counter with 350,000. However, his competitor wasn't backing down and promptly pushed it to 400,000. With this, Han Xiao started to feel the pressure. Not only was this bidder determined, but he was also unfamiliar to Han Xiao, and this also raised his suspicions as he had no information about his opponent. Nevertheless, he decided to raise the bid once more, this time to 450,000, but yet again, his opponent countered with a staggering 500,000. This was a considerable sum, even for Han Xiao. So, he began to contemplate whether it was wise to continue bidding, given that, despite the item's exceptional qualities, it was still an early-game weapon. However, Han Xiao was soon reminded of why he had started bidding in the first place. It wasn't just about acquiring the items. What he truly craved was the exhilaration of winning a high-stakes gamble. With his final bid, he aimed to reach the pinnacle of this cliff overlooking the crashing shores of excitement. Therefore, Han Xiao boldly raised the bid to 600,000, to which Afe was ready to contest this. But fortunately, Slayer intervened, and just like that, the auctioneer began counting down to seal the deal, while Han Xiao felt a rush of euphoria, convinced that he had emerged victorious in this competition. But to their surprise, another contestant suddenly raised the price to 1 million, catching everyone off guard. This unexpected bidder turned out to be Luna, who maintained her calm demeanor, as if she hadn't just dropped the most disrespectful timing ever. And with this, the auction had ended. After a few moments, Slayer and Afe left the place. As they walked, Afe couldn't contain his excitement, realizing that making money could be so much fun. Even Slayer couldn't help but smile at his little brother's enthusiasm. However, the last 1 million was indeed unplanned income. So, with a total of 1,520,000, Minus the 200,000 spent buying various items, they still had 1,320,000 left. After they received the money, the number on the card only changed from 8988 to 7450, which shocked Afe, because this meant that there were 7,450 people in this region who were richer than them, revealing the presence of numerous crypto tycoons playing the game. Nevertheless, Slayer reassured him not to worry about such things and reminded him that they should focus on the main story for now, to which Afe was delighted to follow this advice. However, it seems like they had caught the attention of Luna, as she observed them from afar.
She knows.